Hey, friends, I'm really glad you're here today. Wherever you're listening from, maybe you're driving, maybe you're folding laundry, maybe you finally have a quiet moment to yourself. I want you to know that this space is meant to feel safe and steady, not rushed, not performative, just honest. This devotional is connected to this week's longer episode, The Days Were Long, but it also stands on its own because I know life is busy, attention is limited, and sometimes you need a few minutes of encouragement that meets you right where you are. So let's take a breath together before we go any further. There are seasons of life where the days feel long in ways that it's hard to explain. Not dramatic, not tragic, just quietly heavy. You wake up, you do what needs to be done, take care of the people that you're responsible for, manage your body and your emotions and your faith, and then do it all again the next day and the next. And sometimes the hardest part isn't that something is wrong, it's that nothing seems to be changing. If that's where you are right now, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not behind. You're not missing something. And you're not failing because this season feels slow. So many of us measure meaning by movement. We assume that growth has to look obvious. We expect healing to feel dramatic. We think purpose should be energizing and clear. But many of the most formative seasons of our lives don't feel meaningful while we're living them. They feel repetitive, they feel exhausting, they feel ordinary in a way that almost feels disappointing. And if we're honest with ourselves, there are moments where we wonder if God is even paying attention in these quiet stretches of life. Here's what I've learned, often only through hindsight. The long days are doing something in us, even when we don't yet have language for what that something is. They're shaping patience, they're shaping compassion, they're shaping endurance. They're teaching us how to love when no one is watching and how to keep going without any applause. That kind of formation almost never happens quickly. I think one of the hardest things about long seasons is how invisible they can feel. You can be doing meaningful work every single day, caring, managing, loving, serving, and still feel like you have nothing to point to when someone asks, "So, what's new?" Nothing flashy, nothing that translates easily into a soundbite, nothing that feels like it's worth sharing. And that can quietly mess with our sense of worth because we live in a world that celebrates progress that you can measure. Befores and afters, highlights, milestones. But so much of real life doesn't look like that at all. It looks like quiet consistency. It looks like faithfulness. It looks like showing up again tomorrow. And if you've ever wondered whether that kind of life matters, if you've ever questioned whether God sees the parts of your life that can feel repetitive or unseen, I want to gently remind you God does not overlook quiet obedience. Scripture is full of people who spent long stretches of time doing ordinary things before anything outward ever changed. They weren't forgotten, they weren't delayed, they were being formed. So if your life feels invisible right now, it doesn't mean that it's insignificant. It may mean the work is happening internal. Maybe for you, the long days look like caring for other people while trying not to lose yourself. Maybe they look like managing health issues or financial stresses or a job you didn't expect to still be in. Maybe they look like showing up faithfully in a life that feels smaller than you thought it would be. And if you're honest, you might be telling yourself, I'll feel purposeful when this season is over. But what if that season is exactly as it is where meaning is being formed? What if the repetition you're tired of is quietly building something you'll rely on later? Sometimes the long days are not a delay, they're preparation. There's something deeply uncomfortable about that idea, though, and I want to name it honestly. Because preparation usually sounds purposeful when you're looking back on it. But when you're living in it, preparation feels a lot like waiting or repeating or holding things together without any real proof that it's actually leading you somewhere. A lot of us didn't choose these seasons. We didn't ask for the long days. We didn't sign up for the version of life where things feel smaller, quieter, or heavier than we might have imagined. And yet, here we are. If you're listening right now and thinking, I didn't plan for this to be my life, I want you to know that you're not alone in that thought. Most of us carry some version of it, quietly and privately, especially in seasons where responsibility outweighs freedom. Preparation doesn't always feel like growth. Sometimes it feels like containment, like being held in place while everything else moves forward. But what if preparation isn't about getting ready to do something bigger? What if it's about becoming someone who is steadier, someone who knows how to stay, someone who knows how to love in place, someone who knows how to be faithful without needing constant affirmation? Those qualities don't usually form in wide open seasons. They form in the long ones. There's a verse I come back to often in seasons like this. It's Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. What stands out to me is that it doesn't deny the weariness. It doesn't pretend that this is easy. It simply reminds us that faithfulness matters, even when the harvest isn't visible yet. Sometimes faith looks less like confidence and more like quiet perseverance. I think one of the greatest lies we believe is that meaning has to be loud, that purpose should feel inspiring all the time, that calling should feel obvious and exciting. But so much of real growth happens when inspiration is absent and we choose faithfulness anyway. When we stay, when we keep showing up, when we tend to the small, ordinary world right in front of us. You don't have to change the whole world, friends. You are only asked to be faithful in the world that you live in. Your home, your work, your relationships, your own body, your everyday life. And that is not small work, it is sacred work. If this is you right now, if your life feels quieter than you expected or heavier than you planned for, I want you to hear how normal that is. Some of the most meaningful seasons of our lives don't come with clarity while we're living them. They come with responsibility, with repetition, with the steady work of loving people and managing life in ways that don't leave much room for reflection at all. And that can make you feel disconnected from yourself. You might notice that you don't dream the way you used to, that your energy feels spread thin, that you're showing up for everyone else but aren't quite sure where you went in the process. That doesn't mean you've lost yourself. It means you're in a season where giving has outweighed receiving. And that kind of imbalance, when held for too long, can make even the strongest people feel tired and unseen. If that resonates, I want you to know that there's no shame in it. There's no failure in it. It simply means you've been faithful, and faithfulness costs something. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness doesn't always mean quiet circumstances. Sometimes it means a quiet heart in the middle of responsibility. Sometimes it means trusting that God is present even when life feels busy, messy, or unfinished. If you're listening today and you feel unseen, if you're tired of carrying things quietly, if you're wondering whether this stretch of life actually matters, I want you to know that God is not overlooking you. And the work you're doing, the unseen, ordinary work, is not being wasted. The long days are shaping something in you. Even now, even here, before we move into prayer, I want to give you a moment to locate yourself in this season. Because application doesn't always mean action. Sometimes it means recognition. So I want to ask you gently a few questions. You don't have to answer them out loud. Just notice what comes up for you. Where do your days feel the longest right now? What part of your life feels repetitive or unseen? What responsibility are you carrying that feels heavier than you ever expected? And if you're honest, where have you been telling yourself that this season doesn't count? I wonder what would shift if you allowed yourself to believe that the life you're living right now is not a placeholder, that the care you give, the consistency you offer, the way you show up, even when you're tired, is part of your ministry. Not someday, not when things change, but right now. You don't have to extract a lesson from it yet. You don't have to make meaning on demand. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is simply stay present and trust that God is at work beneath the surface. That's enough for today. As you carry this into the rest of your day or into tomorrow, I don't want you to feel like you have to do anything with it. No action steps, no spiritual homework, no pressure to reframe your entire life. Sometimes the most meaningful application is just permission. Permission to stop minimizing your own exhaustion. Permission to acknowledge that what you're carrying is real. Permission to believe that the life you're living right now is not a placeholder. Maybe the invitation for you this week is simply to notice where you're showing up faithfully, even when it feels ordinary, and let that be enough. To speak a little more kindly to yourself in the middle of these long days, to trust that God is working beneath the surface, even when you can't see the progress yet, and to remember that becoming doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, over time. That kind of growth is easy to miss, but it is deeply meaningful. God, we bring you the parts of our lives that feel repetitive and unseen. The days where we wake up tired, the moments where faith feels quiet instead of confident, the seasons where we're doing our best but still feel unsure. Help us to trust that you are present in the ordinary, that you are working in ways we cannot yet see, and that our imperfect faithfulness still matters to you. Give us peace for today, strength for what is in front of us, and rest in knowing that we are held. Amen. May you feel steadied today. May you feel less alone in the long days. May you trust that nothing you offer in love is ever wasted. And may you rest in the truth that even right now, you matter. Thank you so much for spending time here with me today. If this devotional encouraged you, feel free to share it with someone who might need this kind of encouragement too. And if you'd like to support the growth of this podcast, you're always welcome to do so, simply as a gift toward continued creation. I'll see you next time. Bye.